Good afternoon, and I think most of you do know me, but for those that don't know me, I'm Adam Bojelian and you're doing the crowd control for everything. Thank you for joining us today to celebrate the launch of Playing with Words, a collection of 12 poems by multi-award winning young poet Adam Bojelian, beautifully illustrated by Millie Herriott. Thank you also to Rachel Fox, Catherine Jones, Lucy, and all from the Edinburgh International Book Festival for arranging this event. It's a great joy to be here today, launching Adam's first book of poetry, but obviously a huge sadness that Adam's not here today to do it for himself. And because of the emotion of the event, I'm reading from a script. Adam loved this book festival. He attended every year from when he was 18 months old to when we moved down south when he was 13. He loved listening to his favourite authors and asking them questions. He always said it was his ambition to come back here one day and launch his own book. So it's wonderful that we're able to do that for him today. I'll let Adam, in his own words, tell you about his love of the festival. This is what he wrote in his blog when he was 11. I love the book festival. I love reading and writing. So it's 2 weeks of perfect fun for me. I remember the first book I ever bought at the book festival. It was Paddington Bear, and I was 18 months old. I loved it and went on to enjoy all the Paddington Bear adventures. Another early favourite was Maisie the Cat. I met the author Arlene Patterson several times now, and I learnt a lot about life in Edinburgh by reading about Maisie's adventures. I still really like discovering a new author who has written several or who will go on to write several stories about a particular character. A couple of years ago, I went to listen to Lucy Hawking talking about a book she'd written with her dad Stephen about George. George goes on all sorts of adventures through space. The books are not just stories, but I've also learnt lots about black holes, wormholes, and lots of other things to be found in space. I went to see Lucy Hawking again as she'd just published George's latest adventure, George and the Big Bang. I was really interested in what she had to tell us about space and space travel, and I'm really looking forward to reading my new book. I was delighted that Lucy remembered me from last time I met her and gave me a big hug and a great dedication in my book. I also loved meeting Charlie Fletcher, the author of Stoneheart, which I had just finished reading. My teacher recommended the book, and I loved it. I told Charlie Fletcher that I liked it better than Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, and he was pleased to hear that. The story is set in London, and I've been to most of the places mentioned, so the story really comes to life when I read it. The hero of the book is also called George, so it's obviously a popular name for storybook heroes. He goes on a gripping adventure around London, battling statues which have come to life in search of the stone heart of London. I loved it so much I bought the rest of the series at the book festival and can't wait to find out what happens to George next. I've got tickets to a number of other book festival events in the next couple of weeks. I'm particularly looking forward to seeing poet Carol Ann Duffy again. I saw her last year and she was really impressed that I'd won a Brit Award for my poetry. She said she didn't win an award for her poetry until she was 30, so thought I'd done well to win one at 10. I'm looking forward to telling her that I have won 3 more awards for writing since last year. One thing I love doing now when I go to the book festival is asking the authors questions. As I talk by blinking, I use my special voice I have on my iPad to ask questions. And funnily enough, that voice is called George too. Adam's link with his favourite authors continued beyond the festival, with several keeping in touch with him. Some gave the impression that Adam inspired them with his determination to write a love of literature as much as they inspired him. Adam's link to authors he met at the festival didn't just benefit Adam. Adam had been appointed a child ambassador for the charity Read for Good, their first child ambassador. One of the services Read for Good provides is a book service for children in hospital. Adam spent the last months of his life in Leeds Teaching Hospital, and through his link with a particular author he met here at the festival, the author provided funds for the service at Leeds, a service which still continues to this day, and Read for Good is dedicated to Adam. The service gives children brand new books to keep, which means that children who, like Adam, might be vulnerable to cross-infection could enjoy reading books whilst in hospital. A question that's often asked is, how did Adam write his poems? And during his lifetime, I was often asked how Adam communicated. As mentioned, Adam communicated by blinking, and as he mentioned in his blog, when he was older, he sometimes used his iPad voice. To this day, I'm amazed at the sophisticated level of communication that's possible through blinking. When Adam was between 9 and 18 months, he attended a special needs nursery when we lived down south. It ran twice a week, and the babies and toddlers always enjoyed the same songs. Adam had severe cerebral palsy, so very limited movement. I noticed that whenever we sung "If You're Happy and You'll Know It, Clap Your Hands," when the other children clapped, Adam blinked in time. My husband Paul also noticed that Adam seemed to blink at him when he talked to him. We weren't sure whether Adam was deliberately blinking at this stage, so sought advice from professionals, who encouraged us to treat Adam's blinking as him communicating, saying that it was very likely the case. They also advised that if at that stage Adam wasn't blinking to communicate, us responding to him blinking could encourage him to do so. Furthermore, they advised that the worst possible thing would be if Adam was trying to communicate and his communication was ignored. As Adam progressed through his toddler years, it became very clear that he was blinking to communicate. What fascinated me was how Adam's blink communication progressed like the speech of a child who speaks. So when Adam was at an age where other children use single words, he used single blinks. When he was at an age where children use 3 or 4 word sentences, he would use several blinks. What also amazed me was how he developed the rules and taught those around him how he blinked and communicated. For example, he developed a system where he would, when given options for words of different lengths, he would blink back the word, indicating his choice. For example, if given the choice of pear, 1 syllable, apple, 2 syllables, or banana, 3 syllables, if he wanted a pear, he would blink back once. If he wanted a banana, he would blink back 3 times. It did get to a point where Adam would just look at us and blink whole sentences, and we wouldn't have a clue what he was saying. And we would have to slow him down, and so that we could break down the words and ask him questions to understand what he was saying. When it came to schoolwork and writing his blogs and poems, Adam used a variety of systems. As mentioned, at times he used a blink switch, but the disadvantage of that was that he blinked to make the words move on the computer, but then somebody would come up behind him and ask him a question, and he'd turn and talk to him and blink, and then the pages would all move on the computer, or the words would go, so it didn't really work very effectively for Adam. He often used a spelling chart along with a scribe who could write down his words, and this grid made it much easier. Adam would be asked which line the letter he wanted was on. For example, is it on the A line, the E line, the I line, and he would blink to tell the scribe. The scribe would then only have to read out the letters from that line to not go through the whole alphabet. I remember Adam using this method when he wrote his poem Christmas Gibbons. He said that he wanted to write a Christmas poem, and he started spelling out G, I, and I was scribing. And I was wondering what word he was writing. And he'd spell out Gibbons. And I turned to him and said, Gibbons? It's a Christmas poem. He blinked back, yes, and then created his wonderful poem about Christmas Gibbons travelling across the globe, delivering presents for Santa, which went on in 2012 to become a #2 Christmas hit. Another tool Adam used was tins of words or lists of words on the internet. For example, he would decide he wanted to write a poem about football and then choose words to be included from a list of football vocabulary. Adam's poetry writing was a very slow process. Poems could take weeks to complete, sometimes months, if his health was poor. He also tended to write by choosing the nouns first, then his adjectives, then his adverbs, as well as we'll see an example later, punctuation usually came last. So I'm sure you're all keen to hear something about Adam's book, Playing with Words, which is beautifully illustrated by children's book illustrator Millie Herriott, who I'm delighted has joined us here today, travelling all the way from Cornwall. Millie's illustrations so beautifully capture the spirit and atmosphere of each of Adam's poems. The poems in this book are chosen from Adam's writings as ones which, whilst appealing to people from all ages, would be particularly appealing to children. In his teenage years, Adam was often asked by bodies such as the NHS and national charities to write to them. Those poems will be in Adam's second book. Adam started writing poetry when he was 9 years old. He attended a poetry group at St Mark's Unitarian Church here in Edinburgh, and it's wonderful that some members of that church are here today. And he wrote his first poem, Summertime, which you'll find playing with words for that group. However, I've chosen to read first Charlie, about Adam's pet dog, which is also one of his first poems. It's so evocative, and Millie's illustrations so beautifully bring Adam's poems and Charlie to life. Charlie. My name is Adam, and I am 9. I own the smartest, funniest dog in town. His name is Charlie, and he's a clown. He is small and white with a waggy tail, 2 sticky up ears, and an eye patch of brown. Round and round my room he'll race, wagging his tail and licking my face, shaking wet paws all over the place. Oh, Charlie, Mum cries, your muddy paws all over the floor. Charlie darts straight out of the door, only to return when the coast is clear. Beside me he lies, whether I'm poorly or well. He's as wise as can be, and I'm sure he can tell. Nudging and pawing to snuggle away. Close up beside me, and I'll stay there all day. Adam had a real talent for expressing emotions in his poems. And I think this poem, World Cup Winner, which he wrote for a school exercise, illustrates that well. Adam loved football, and particularly loved supporting a team his dad didn't support. But of course, he was not able to physically play it himself. So this poem also shows the power of Adam's imagination as he describes scoring the winning goal in the World Cup. World Cup winner. With aching legs and a heart full of pride, The noise of the crowd left nowhere to hide. The clock was ticking towards the end of the game. If it stayed a draw, it would be a shame. In my nation's shirt, in the heart of Brazil, scoring the winning goal would be such a thrill. In the heat of Rio, I dive for the ball, but it hits the post. I feel such a fool. I rally my strength and run up the pitch. I use my right foot, avoiding a hitch. The ball floats through the air and over the line. The feeling inside of me is simply divine. The ref blows the whistle. The crowd shouts and scream. I scored the winner. I'm living the dream. What I said about Adam using his imagination also explains why this collection of poems is called Playing with Words. As that's exactly what Adam did. Unlike other children, he could only have very limited physical play, so instead words were his plaything, creating beautiful poems and stories. By the age of 10, Adam had already received a Brit Writers Award, a gold Blue Peter badge, the first of two of many awards he would go on to receive in the remaining 5 years of his life. Adam had a cheeky sense of humour, and this could often be seen in his poems, such as in the last couple of lines of this poem. The sun. I like it when the sun shines, when it's warm and hot and bright, to feel the sun's rays on my face from early morn to night. I like to lie in the park when the sun is high, to listen to the birdsong and watch the world go by. I like to play on the beach and smell the rolling sea, to watch my dad fly a kite and hope it won't hit me. Another poem which illustrates Adam's sense of humour is a silly poem. Adam loved nonsense verse, inspired by Roald Dahl, Edwin Lear and Spike Milligan. He wrote this poem at school, and I remember his lovely teacher telling me in jest he was a bit concerned about a particular line. The actor Samuel West also included this poem in his Pandemic Poems audio collection he recorded during the COVID pandemic. A silly poem. At my school, the green fish digs a hole and chases the dog down the road. In the yard, a big dinosaur laughs out loud and tells me a joke. I laugh. Later that day, I saw a bug eat my teacher for lunch. The lion reads a book in the tree, and then a scientist with a monkey drives a car too fast through the air. In my dreams, I catch a spaceship to the moon. I go off looking for hot dogs. Adam also had a great love for the natural world. He particularly enjoyed visiting My Dynamic Earth here in Edinburgh. This is a poem again written at school when they were studying the rainforest. His teacher told me Adam wrote each stanza to represent a different canopy or layer of the rainforest. Layers of the rainforest. Community climbing in the sky, creatures clamoring and calling, the canopy covers like a cloak. Trees reach tall, touching together, entwining treasures within branches and twigs. Underneath, in the understory, unlit and unseen, the rainforest holds the unknown. The forest floor, a fabric of foliage, fragrant flowers and fascinating frogs. It may be far away from Scotland, but it affects us all. The rainforest is full of the future. The Green Fish is another poem which illustrates Adam's empathy with the natural world. Several adults have told me this is their favourite of Adam's poems, and some have found deep spiritual meaning in the poem. What amused me is that I asked Adam about that deep spiritual meaning, and he said no, which made me wonder about everything I learnt when I studied for my English literature degree. The green fish wakes me up in the lake. He swims with me through the water. The green heron glides speedily to the bank. I dive into the beautiful depths. The heron plummets under the water to join me. The fish plunges down to join us both. We swim together through the calming and peaceful waters. The green fish and the green heron sparkle, three amphibious allies dancing in the depths. The final poem I'm going to read to you is Winter. This poem has a particular poignancy as I found it amongst Adam's school books several months after his death. I mentioned earlier that Adam tended to put the punctuation last. I think this poem is probably unfinished, as it has virtually no punctuation. Winter. Winter is frost on my window pane like an artist's stroke. Shimmering it sparkles with the changing light. Icicles clinging from the roofs and doorways. People slipping and sliding, balancing precariously along winding streets and lanes. It is a winter tapestry, snow-covered hills, a frozen lake that a gliding swan swims on. It's a glittering star, a silver rocket landing on the moon. Shivering, freezing, sneezing, fingers and toes, faces red, nose running. Hats on heads, collars turned up, people wrapped up, thick socks, wellies, furry boots. Winter is a frosty landscape, a colourless time. Windows frosted over, fields covered in snow. All is white. Well, thank you again for joining us, and thank you again to the festival organisers. Copies of Playing with Words are on sale, and I think somebody's coming across for people to buy them. But if you've got any questions for me or for Millie, please feel free to ask them, and do stay around and buy a copy of the book.